Mr. Wayne, your limited edition copy of Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash has arrived. Perhaps you would like me to install the game.
No, Alfred. I need to finish my 7th playthrough of Starfield. I only need to fast travel 47 more times to finally beat the game. Maybe once I get all the achievements.
Bad Batman, no! This is why you fell off. It's because of your bad taste in games. Everyone has bad taste in games unless you have this game in your library. Now, you're probably asking, how would I know if they had a bad taste in games? And it's simple. You're a meat writer. Boom! And it's okay. In this video, I'm going to diagnose your problems, and together, we're going to fix them. I'm a certified psychologist with a bachelor in gaming, so you're in safe hands, just trust me. But first, let me explain what a meat writer is, since some of you might not understand my modern high-intellect ebonics that I'm currently using. Imagine your favorite thing, right? Now, anytime someone criticizes it, you will now go apeshit bananas over opinions someone stated. This is a meat writer, and I'm going to be using this term to describe bad critics in the gaming community. Now, we can take it one step further. There's such a thing called D1 meat writers, and usually you see this type of behavior in the sports community, like Prince LeBron or Papa Sauce Gardner. Show a picture of either of these men to a D1 meat writer, and the room will be engulfed in hot, sticky semen. Let me explain first. A D1 meat writer is much scarier than just a regular one, just from the fact that this one will never listen to a word you say. Even myself am a meat writer if you put me up with my favorite game. This is coming from personal experience. When you encounter one of these people, you only have a couple solutions to avoid their wrath. You got one, disengage immediately. And I mean that literally. The moment you enter an argument, you're immediately cooked. Might as well just season yourself. Number 2, you gun down said meat writer. The years you'll spend in prison is worth the time you would have wasted arguing with this guy. And then you got number 3, which is just killing yourself, because my god, being this close-minded should be a federal crime. Basically, just treat them like the fucking Grinch. Just don't touch them with a 10-foot pole, because they will eat you alive. Now, there's 4 stages, or should I say 4 types of meat writers in the gaming community, and I will be discussing them all in this video. First up, you got recency bias, where their excitement gets to the better of their judgment, and they will absolutely do anything just to make it look better than it actually is, and then in a couple months, completely forget about it. Then there's justifying purchase, also known as the sunk cost fallacy effect. This type of consumer is mega coping with the fact that they spent a large sum of money for their game, and when it doesn't deliver, they will white knight the fuck out of it no matter the quality. Third one is influencer control, which just boils down to my favorite creator loves this. Me love this too. This one's probably the most confusing and convoluted out of the bunch from all the psychology that's involved. Then you got number 4, which is nostalgia. Nostalgia is a personal comforting feeling that comes with any experience. Their favorite childhood game could be the worst game ever created, but they could somehow find 0 flaws within it because of nostalgia. Now, enough yapping. First thing I want to talk about is recency bias and how common it actually is. And the people who are affected by this aren't even self-aware of it. I'm a victim of it. He's a victim of it. You're probably a victim of it. I don't know, man. I don't know you. Maybe we like shook hands. Maybe we dead.
Nay! What the fluff is recency bias?
That is an excellent question, my beautiful, beautiful viewer that is probably watching this on a leapfrog. Let me pull out my handy-dandy hood dictionary to give you a definition. Recency bias is when you prefer the new thing no matter what. New game came out, greatest game ever. New Stanley Cup, yes please. New Glock Gen 4, don't mind if I do. This whole recency bias can negatively affect your judgment, opinions, and evaluations to a degree that you didn't think was possible, and I mean that with 100% seriousness. I mean, just look at my Rise of Kong review. I gave it a 10 out of 10 just because I played it 6 minutes after release. If we apply this to the gaming community, you can see that recency bias is scarily a very, very common thing. I'd say more common than any other form of media, but I literally have no data to back this up, and I'm just making shit up. Anyways, I guarantee you've seen this type of behavior for a video game that recently came out, especially one that has reputation or brand loyalty connected to it. A perfect example is Spider-Man 2. I fucking hate bringing this game up as an example so much. I mean, if you watch any of my videos, I've mentioned this game way too many times. Anyways, I actually like this game a lot. And I mean, the first one was really just the best Spider-Man game hands down, narrative and gameplay wise, and everyone agreed besides some people saying Spider-Man 2 for the PS2 was better, which is just wrong, but it had the pizza minigame, so maybe they weren't wrong. And who doesn't love Spider-Man? He's been in the media for it seems like forever with millions of fans around the world. And this mix of brand loyalty along with recency bias and just loving Spider-Man in general is an incredible mix for a Spider-Man meat writer. When this game released, you could watch motherfuckers play the game for not even 2 minutes and say it's game of the year.
Nay, they're obviously exaggerating. Don't be freaking stupid.
I mean, yeah, of course these guys are exaggerating to be funny, but there were actual Spider-Man fans saying this shit unironically. Most social media platforms, especially TikTok, saying outlandish shit like Spider-Man 2 negs any game in 2023. Did we play the same game? This was during the peak of the game in October when it was fresh out the oven, so the entire fan base was in this echo chamber of opinions that just wouldn't stop. But unsurprisingly, it slowly started changing from overwhelmingly positive reception to kind of lukewarm at the end of the year, with some outlier Spider-Man fans defending it with their life. And a lot of reviewers struggle with this, even if they think they're the most logical and critical, even if they don't want to be influenced by recency bias, they struggle to differentiate what their actual opinion is versus their influenced take. Recency bias is a real thing, but why as people do we do this? Why can't something come out and we review it critically? We always get so wrapped up in something new. It's a natural tendency in humans. It stems from the way our brains prioritize and retain information. There's a couple of reasons why we have this, and I'll try to articulate them with my current knowledge on this subject and some research that I did. And by research, I mean I typed in recency bias in the search bar and I put Reddit right after it. Humans are kind of dumbasses. Even me, a professional video capital G gamer, am a bit mentally handicapped. And what I mean by that is that we have a very short-term memory and how we're naturally emotional beings. Let's touch on short-term memory first and how our brain processes recency bias. There is a limited capacity to short-term memory, meaning that when we are presented with information, we are constrained in how much we can actively hold in our short-term memory at any given moment. As new information is introduced, it competes for the limited space in short-term memory. And once this capacity is reached, older memories or experiences will be slowly forgotten. Basically, you have mild dementia. You are forgetting about the games you've previously played.
Well, no shit, Knight. That's why I replay them.
Yeah, replay that game and then you're gonna come out with two outcomes. One, you realize all the flaws in that game without recency bias, clouding your judgment. Or two, you reinforce why that game is so good. And these outcomes solely come from your personality and what game you're playing. God of War Ragnarok, for example, you play the game at release, you're gonna love it, but then you replay and love the game until you get to fucking Ironwood and then you want to kill yourself. I'm getting off track, and this topic on replayability is a video on its own. Your short-term memory is going to keep that recently played game in your head fresh. You can pinpoint why you love the game and all the good parts are vividly replaying in your memory. This limitation in our short-term memory is a fundamental aspect of human thinking. Understanding our limitations when it comes to our own mind and being able to grasp the difference between our own true opinions and influence opinions is what makes an excellent reviewer differentiate from a bad reviewer. When we get excited about a new release, we'll always get cartoon heel-clicking hyped about new entries into the market. This isn't a bad thing. We want to see this game grow and change over time and see how it affects the gaming community culture as a whole. We want to see what new ideas are being brought to the table. But again, as time goes on, the lesser games get forgotten and ignored while the greater ones get held up as classics. Yet both classics and lesser games experience recency bias. But the reason why classics are considered so is because they withstood the recency bias phenomenon. They're classics because they are true works of art that everyone will love till this day. You got this one dude replying to someone asking about the existence of recency bias in gaming. Definitely is for me. Pretty much every game I play becomes my new favorite game. And the closest thing you can compare this to is when a little kid gets a new toy, like when Andy in that one Toy Story movie was all like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And then he fucking shot Woody or something. I don't remember the movie, to be honest. Basically, new thing good, old thing bad. When it comes to being human, the thing that makes us special is the capability of having emotions to an unprecedented level. As much as someone wants to tell you that they're a logical being or that all of their decisions are driven by logic, they are completely lying. Even if the decision does seem to be logical, there's always going to be a hidden layer of emotional drive by said action. And this goes along with recency bias. The whole Spider-Man story I had at the beginning were people driven by emotion to protect their precious brown-eyed Prince Spider-Man that they've grown up with over the years. And there's nothing wrong with that. Having someone like Spider-Man be your role model is a good thing, but when you put yourself in that position, you tend to cloud your judgment. And rightfully so, because no one wants to see the person they idolize being berated and ridiculed, because you see a piece of yourself in that character. And when they insult that character, it feels like they're insulting you. This type of loyalty was definitely less common when the gaming industry was just starting out. There wasn't many established brands or classic characters to grab hold of, so I like to believe biased reviewers were less common back then. This is a stupid assumption, but I'm gonna roll with it. A lot of people in the gaming community need to start asking themselves, is the game actually this good, or are you just getting caught up in your own excitement? Please land on Smash your past 4th gen Pokemon. Please, please, please. Post-release game purchase coping. What the fuck am I reading right now? Post-release purchase coping has claimed many victims, including me. This type of meat writer is kind of similar in a way to the recency bias meat writer, but also completely unrelated at the same time. It all comes down to your pride, but also your connection to the game. Pride in a sense of looking stupid that you spent your hard-earned money on a game that either doesn't work, died out, or just plain dog shit. It's a case where someone defends a product solely on the fact on the money they spent. There's actually a name for this phenomenon called sunk cost fallacy. The phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. This is what I call a money meat rider. They will die on a hill defending their precious game just because they spent their monthly allowance of $9 on said game. Before I delve even deeper into the sunk cost fallacy rabbit hole, I want to share a personal story with you guys, since I love you all very deeply. I know, don't buy my OnlyFans just yet, link in description. I want to express a very big gripe with a specific game I have a long history with, that not only shoves DLCs in your face to buy, but they also remove the DLCs and keep your money so you can't even defend your purchase when it comes down to it. And yes, you guessed it, Destiny 2. Fuck you, Bungie. No one likes you besides maybe Dado, and that's stretching it.
You're just jumping on the Bungie hate train after Lightfall.
No, man, I got 1,000 hours. I owned my own clan. I ran 4-man raids. I lived and breathed Destiny 2 for years.
And what does this have to do with the sunk cost fallacy?
Everything, actually. When you defend something solely from the reason that it costs money, then I should have the content to back said purchase. Except, they removed the content I fucking bought for 60 bucks. Let's take a quick look, okay? Base game released in 2017, gone. The original campaign, I bet you thought it was okay. Uh-oh, sorry Bumblefuck, that shit's gone too. The Curse of Osiris and Warmind expansions that you bought as well, gone, motherfucker. And the 3 that I mentioned are the shitty expansions. If you're a Destiny 2 fan, I know you were real pissed when they removed the best DLC right next to Witch Queen and fucking Taken King. Forsaken. The campaign that sent off Cayde 6, the only likable character in the game, into oblivion. I was a victim of the sunk cost fallacy to this game, and every other Destiny 2 fan that was addicted to the game as well. It was irrational and stupid to double down on defending the game, but since we already sunk so much money into the expansions, and most of all, time, we were stuck on this game. Story over. A recent game that came out last year that there are plenty of videos on was Starfield, and clearly gamers love this installment in the Bethesda franchise. Billions of copies sold, Todd Howard got his massive cock sucked to an unprecedented degree, and no YouTubers made videos on how outdated and shit the game was. I lied. And this game was hated by like a lot of people, I think. This is one of those games that I believe that meat writing or the sunk cost fallacy very much exists to an unparalleled level. Besides the fact of recency bias and the meat writing Bethesda, there were so many people coping with the $70 that they spent on a game that didn't meet anyone's expectations of a next-gen experience, especially Xbox fans. Some of these guys could only be compared to Doomslayer or a fucking Space Marine when it comes to defending their purchase of the game.
Right! You can't really assume when someone's a fan and when someone's coping with their purchase.
When they're fencing on the game, it's very easy to read them, and the more expensive the game is, the easier it is to characterize these people. People who had a lukewarm reception, players who are raging in online arguments, and fans comparing it to other AAA games are easy to spot out. And then you notice they usually have one thing in common, and it's the fact that they don't even finish the fucking game to begin with. The moment you know the person you're arguing with didn't even finish it and is defending it with their last dying breath, that's when you know that person is a meat writer or a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. There's nothing wrong with liking Starfield. Some people genuinely enjoyed the game, but even if you did enjoy the game, you have to admit its flaws. I've been throwing that buzzword sunk cost fallacy a lot, but what does that even mean? Besides the definition I gave earlier. We know people aren't willing to swallow their pride on a wrong purchase or don't want to abandon something they invested in, but what does this mean on a deeper level? Shit, I have to actually read this one. Let's take it to the creation of the word from this article that might or might not be credible. The sunk cost fallacy is a type of cognitive bias, a thinking error that makes us misinterpret information and affects the decisions that we make. Psychologists Amos and Daniel, I'm not gonna try and fucking pronounce that, first coined the idea of cognitive bias in 1972. There's 5 main points for sunk cost fallacy and the psychology behind it. Starting off real flippin' strong, we have loss aversion. Loss aversion is avoiding losses because the idea of losing something is more psychologically powerful than the idea of gaining the same thing. For example, winning $70 feels good, but losing $70 feels horrible. As a result, we'll go out of our way to avoid that feeling of losing $70. With the sunk cost fallacy, loss aversion makes us stick with poor investments because we don't want to feel bad about losing. Number 2, the framing effect. The framing effect happens when people pick options based on whether they're framed in a positive or negative light. This effect plays into the sunk cost fallacy because when we follow through on a decision, we can frame it as an overall success. And when we don't follow through, we often create a narrative of failure, even if cutting our losses was actually the logical choice. For example, imagine you go and spend a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, on a game at GameStop, and you realize the game you bought is kind of low-key, high-key dog shit, and you'd probably feel better refunding or buying another game. But in your mind, that would mean your purchase, your game that you bought, that you were super excited for, was a failure. So you decide to follow through, even though your money would be better spent elsewhere. Number 3, unrealistic optimism. Unrealistic optimism occurs when people believe they're less likely to experience a negative event than other people. With the sunk cost fallacy, this means we're likely to overestimate our chances of winning and underestimate our chances of losing, especially if we've invested money in something. For example, if you buy the Super Mega Giga Ultra Deluxe bundle for $300, you're more likely to believe it will pan out, regardless of actual evidence. Number 4, a sense of personal responsibility. When you feel responsible for previous expenses, you're more likely to fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy. In other words, it's relatively easy to change a decision made by someone else, but a lot harder to discontinue a game you personally decided to invest in, like me with Destiny 2. And finally, the last psychological reason for the sunk cost fallacy is a desire to not appear wasteful. Imagine you bought the Game of the Year winner, My Thai Boyfriend. But 30 minutes in, you absolutely hate the game. You play through the whole game for 2 reasons. 1, you don't want other people in your group to think you're wasting money. And 2, you personally feel bad about wasting money. You're scared of being judged by other people, so you clock in those hours. But don't feel ashamed though, because I have over 4,000 hours on My Thai Boyfriend. Notice how most of these you could probably relate to if you were in the Destiny 2 community. It's kind of funny I say the Destiny 2 community is brainwashed in this effect, but most of the community know the game is dog shit now, so Bungie needs to lock in, man. Jesus Christ. This section of meat writers in the gaming community is over, I like to think, because the script is already fucking 4,000 hours long. We're not even on the last part, so influencer control, and we're gonna explore what that really means. Why does Jungkook have so many baddies on his dick? Why does Corey Kenshin have the entire black community in his palm? Why does the Persona series have me on a leash? Those 3 things, but apply that to gaming. Sadly, influencer control does not have a cool term like sunk cost fallacy, but to put it simply, Jake Paul told me to buy a limited edition vlogger camera, so I bought the limited edition vlogger camera because I'm a Jake Paul meat writer. The community of gaming meat writing is slowly coming to a close.
Night! It's impossible for an influencer to have that much control over someone's opinion!
See, that's what I thought too, but there's a thing called idolizing someone. Moist Critical just said a new game sucks mega monkey dick, and I fuck with the Moist man, so this game has to suck dick, and review bombed. This type of influence is more common with kids since they can barely think for themselves, and they're probably watching Skibbity toilet compilations while eating Cheetos. But I be doing that too, and I'm 43 years old. I say kids are more likely to be influenced by content creators, but look at Stanley Cups. Like, holy shit. Why the fuck are you buying that many Stanley Cups? Remember what I said a while ago? We're all kind of dumb, and I have proof. I mean, just look at me. I could barely finish the first level of Geometry Dash. But we're kind of dumb is the point, because we're flawed human beings, and as humans, we tend to follow the crowd, especially following a crowd of people that have the same thing in common, and that's liking one person, the influencer. Besides YouTubers, this influencer control thing is more prevalent on Twitch from personal experience. It's baffling to think there's people hopping on Twitch after their 9 to 5 to spam WGAT and Kai Cenat stream. This is a bad example because Kai's fan base is kids, but you get the point. You can see this entire community supporting this one guy, and none of these streamers realize how much influential power they have. If Kaiser were to tell his chat to go piss on a copy of Bloodborne, you will see a whole new trend of people pissing on a copy of Bloodborne. This happens all the time in the gaming community. People defending a game for the sole reason that their favorite content creator likes it, or that they recommended it, meaning it has to be good. If we're gonna dive deep into this one, influencer control comes down to 2 things: sheep mindset and parasocial connections. Let's do parasocial relationships first because I find this really interesting. Parasocial relationships are kind of looked down upon in modern day society due to the negative stigma surrounding it when it's related to streamers like tier 3 Pokimane subs and their desire to lick her feet. These people definitely exist, but the majority of parasocial relationships aren't all that negative. Let's first take a look at what a parasocial relationship actually is. Parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where one party extends emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the persona, is completely unaware of the other's existence. Okay, I know that sounds bad, but let me explain. Parasocial relationships can extend to many things, like connections to fictional characters, but that's not what this video is about. If we look at the parasocial relationships in gaming, we can see that the majority of people online are in parasocial relationships with their favorite content creator, some to the point of idolizing. That's not a joke either. If Corey Kenshin were a convicted murderer, you would still see his entire fucking fan base defending their king. That's a parasocial relationship that they developed over the years.
So what's your point, Knight?
Watch.
Yo, what's good, Samurai Army? Go buy that new Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
I mean, that's why sponsorships exist, right? I mean, go buy NordVPN, go buy Express, go buy this, go buy that, and they will. Onto the sheep mindset. You've probably heard this a bunch of times, blah, 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 I'm an alpha male sigma, blah, 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 I make my own choices, blah, 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 I don't get influenced. Whatever you say, pal. Welcome to the real world. You're just like the rest of us. I've said this multiple times before. Humans naturally want to be in communities or groups. Most people that aren't in one most definitely long for one. But making friends is hard, so the next best thing to do is make that community your content creator. This person, this one sole person is your tribe. Along with the feeling of wanting to belong somewhere, there's also a trading aspect when it comes to content creators. When you, the viewer, feel like you've been served the content you wanted or see the content you got value from, you, the viewer, feel inclined to like or subscribe. And this concept can be applied to influencers promoting you a game like Raid Shadow Legends, Brawl Stars, War Thunder, and Actman with Payday 3. You shouldn't have done that, man. And if you still doubt the power of influencers, don't forget when Dream got his fan base to vote for the Glow Squid, ending the whole thing in a landslide victory.
Nigga, I like young girls. I like them 15, 14.
Game reviewers are incredibly powerful. With a big enough audience, they can completely shift your opinion on a game. If Donkey or Jakey were to call Tetris dog shit, you're gonna start hearing that opinion going around. IGN has power too, with their rating being publicly displayed almost everywhere. Some people genuinely can't form their own opinion, so the next best thing is to regurgitate what their favorite YouTuber said. Mr. Cigar, you talk about how much you love Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I mean, did you even play the game?
Rad Brad made a bigger Let's Play, and he freaking loved that game.
Did you play the game? And if you did play the game, did you even finish the story? Time for nostalgia meat riders. This one's scary. They will bounce on their favorite game without fail. It could be the most oldest piece of shit Aztec dated game, and someone out there would say it's a masterpiece because they played it at 9 years old on their fucking Virtual Boy. Nostalgia meat riders have their judgment clouded from the past. You've probably heard the term nostalgia goggles a lot because some people genuinely can't review an old game without having them on. A lot of old games are outdated yet have a large following behind just from nostalgia. And just because they're old and outdated doesn't make it a bad game. There's plenty of classics that still hold up till this day, but there's also plenty of classics that really are kind of not good, like, at all. Nostalgia is a link to your past. Laugh. It's what connects you to your childhood memories of a game. This was your happy place as a kid. It sticks with you and becomes a part of you and your personality. Nostalgia is a comforting feeling and can come in many ways in any form of media. As beautiful as this emotion is, it's a real bitch having to argue with someone that thinks GoldenEye should be the industry standard. It seems childish to connect yourself to a game on that level, but that logic could be applied to almost anything. It's not childish to connect yourself to a character or a story. I sympathize with nostalgia meat riders the most. The game might have been the best thing you ever played during your childhood, but it doesn't mean it can't be criticized. Throw Pikmin 1 and 2 at me any day and I'll gobble that shit up. Is the game flawed in many ways? I don't know, man. You tell me. Nostalgia definitely affects your judgment, but how can you tell what's nostalgia and what's actually a good game? Is it possible at all to judge your childhood game without nostalgia? Let's take Sonic Adventure 2. This game fucking sucks. All the Sonic fans that watch my videos know I'm always beefing with this game. The reason why this matters is even though I'm a Sonic fan, I can review this game critically without being affected from nostalgia. This game has many flaws, but even I can acknowledge that there is golden nuggets in this extra poop sandwich. 9 times out of 10 when you play an old game, it's gonna be outdated. Game developers back then don't have the same tricks or knowledge like they do now. Besides the fact that they needed games to be harder to lengthen gameplay, a lot of old games were hard as fuck and every enemy felt like a boss. And when you played a NES game or any old game in general, there was literal bullshit around every corner. I'm looking at you, Ninja Gaiden. My point is, if you play an old game and see zero flaws with it, you are most likely blinded by nostalgia. Another example is me with Pikmin. Like I said earlier, I'm gonna gobble this shit up, but even then, my brain-dead gamer mind is thinking of Pikmin, but my logical side is saying, why the fuck do the red Pikmin do 0.5 more damage than the rest of the Pikmin? Why are the purple Pikmin the most broken and overpowered pieces of shit in the game? These are questions you have to ask yourself when playing an old game that you love. Sometimes the thing that ages is you. Your taste in everything changes when you grow older, sometimes for good and sometimes for worse, but it never removes your ability to see something critically if you really try. At the end of the day, we're all a little influenced by basically everything, and that's okay. You can't always 100% be original and authentic, even if you think you are. Does that mean you shouldn't try to be? Of course not. Trying to be your own person and having your own opinions just on your own is a beautiful thing that every person on this earth has to learn in their lives. Some people never come close and consume whatever is thrown at them, and some actually think. And maybe you're one of those. But at the end of the day, the title is ironic because an opinion is an opinion. You're entitled to it and everyone else is entitled to theirs. But take this hopefully newfound knowledge and try to think for yourself when you cop a game and play it. And if you don't, I'm gonna have to diagnose you with bad taste syndrome and euthanize you.
What?